Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today I have the last video of the year before my Christmas inverted holiday break. Actually, it's more a New Year break. So this is our last video until the 28th of January, and I thought it would be fun to do a Altenew video. So we've got this gorgeous stamp set from Altenew featuring these beautiful tulips. Now, if you want to know details of exactly what products are used, as always, click the link in the paragraph below and it will take you to the blog post, and you will see a list of all the products used and of course tons of photos. So let's get crafting. So this particular stamp set is one of the Build a Flower stamp sets, and recently a lot of the stamp sets come with these lovely folder sort of kit sheets in them, which have some examples of some cards that are full size that you can make with colours that are used, plus of course, as always, it has those step-by-steps. So the plan I had was to make a card following this particular one here. However, you'll see it didn't go quite according to plan, but I think what I did was I left it in to show you that it can go wrong, but we can make it go right. So when I put my stamp sets in the little boxes, I try to keep the layers in order. So you'll see there that I'm worked out from the diagram which was the first layer for my tulip. I did play around with positioning the tulip using the other parts of the stamp sets just to make sure that it was in the right place, and I'm starting off using the palest colour. Now we're going to be layering some stamps so that they're overlapping each other, so you want to start kind of opposite to what you would think. You would normally think you would want to do the stamps that at the back of your design first, but you actually want to do the ones at the front. So we're starting off with the flower that's literally going to be in the forefront of our design. So now we're doing layer 2, and you'll see from the diagram it shows you those little lines where you have to line it up. So you just do that, but you know, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't completely match. You'll see in a minute that I get a layer and it's not perfect, but you know, it doesn't matter, nature's not perfect. So then I do the next colour. You'll see there what it was. I think it was Warm Sunshine, and what you'll see here is that I'm actually, it looks like I'm pressing really hard. I'm not. What I'm doing is just making sure, because it's a bigger area, that all the sections are completely covered. And what you want to do, I find personally, when particularly using like stamp platforms, is that you want to allow the ink an opportunity to sort of, as it were, soak into the card. So when you ink up your stamp, you want to put the stamp down onto the card, and you don't necessarily need to sit there and press it hard for a long time, although you need to put a little pressure on, obviously. But what you want to do is just give it a few seconds to allow that ink to actually absorb. If you literally just go down, up, it hasn't got a chance to really get into the card and layer that ink down onto the cardstock. So you'll see here, all I've been doing is going through the layering guide with you, showing you where the little lines are showing that we have to match up to make sure that it matches up the layers. And I'm just trying to show you the equivalent layer in the stamp, so because sometimes I don't think it's always that easy to work out, well, which layer is that, and it doesn't quite look the same. So you can kind of see easier actually when it goes on, and you can see here what I'm pointing at is just that is the section that you want to make sure that bit's lined up, but you want to look and just make sure that as best as you can. It is hard to judge because you've got sections that you're not sure sort of where the lines are, the way that it kind of is cut away. It's hard to see exactly where the line kind of is for this actual stamping part until you actually put ink on it, at which point it's a bit late, but you can only do your best. So here again we've got the next layer, and these are the colors that they were suggesting, so I just followed along with this. As I said, what I'll do is I'll put all of that in the blog post for you, but it looks quite strong, and I was like, ooh, when I was doing it, but actually when it was finished, it still really did look like a yellow tulip, because I was thinking, gosh, this is getting quite dark, but actually I think it turned out really nicely. Now I think this is the layer that wasn't 100% perfect. You can see there's a lot of different lines and they were quite fiddly to get in place, and I cut quite a lot of this out, but it does take quite a bit of time sometimes just to sort of knock some of these more detailed pieces into place. So don't worry and think, oh, when Amanda does it, it seems to take her seconds. Well, it would do, because I'm not going to sit there and let you watch that for the whole of the video. That would be really dull. So you'll see here, I think it's this layer that's just very slightly out, but you know, when you stand back, yeah, you can see, there we go, look, that sort of darker piece in that dip isn't quite in the right place, but when you stand back, it's not going to show, it's not going to be a big deal, so don't get disheartened if something like that happens. So you'll see here, I put a couple of the leaves down, and then the one that I wanted sort of to be first to be stamped was at the bottom, but I just wanted to position them so I could make sure that they were kind of where I needed them to be in relation to each other. And then again, I'm just looking at that chart just to try and make sense of what layer goes when. Now this is where it went a little bit wrong. The chart showed a particular design, you'll see here, but the piece is completely different, so it took me a while to find it. Now it may be yours is not like that, but you'll see that it's just doing the bottom part, whereas the picture showed it doing a bit at the top as well. So if you've got yours like mine, that's fine and you'll be okay with that. So just don't be panicking thinking, oh, I haven't got the right bit. You probably, it's just been changed, or maybe the chart was different, or maybe I just got some weird one that just was wrong. But if yours is like mine, then at least you know which piece to use, because I have to say it took me a little while to be sure that I was doing it correctly. Now these tiny little pieces are a pain to actually get balanced, because the top of it is wider than the bit that you're stamping. Obviously it needs to be wider so that it will stick to the whether it's a platform or a block or whatever, but then to try and balance it is a pain in the bum. Now I got sorry, a pain in the bum, that's a really, you know, elegant way of saying it. I also got the dies that went with this set. Well, I think actually these builder stamp ones come with the dies, I can't quite remember. But what I then did was cut out some of the masking paper. Now this particular one it's really good, but it is very lightly tacky. So what you'll see in a minute is that my leaf actually lifts back off again, not before I stamp, luckily, so it was okay. But you'll see there, that's why I put the roller down. It's kind of like a balancing act. You want it to be not sticky so that it lifts up the paper but underneath and what you've stamped, but on the other hand you want it sticky enough that it stays down when you're stamping. So it's kind of a balancing act. But I suspect because the tulip part was fine, that I just had overhandled that little bit with the leaf. So there you can see I've put a couple of different elements down. Now when you've put down some masking, what you'll find, there you go, you can see I lifted that bit up by accident, so you just pop it back down. What you'll find when you've got masking is that, believe it or not, even though the masking is really thin, it creates like almost like a little step between where you're stamping, and it creates sort of, if you're not careful, like a little white gap between the stamped area and the stamped area on top of the masking. You'll see what I mean in a second when I go down. So this is when you really do need to probably give it a little bit more of a press round the sections that are the links between the sort of masked area and the non-masked area, so that that sort of white line is minimal. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit. You can see there's sort of a white line, so I just go back in and I just go back over that section and give it a bit more of a press. It's still not gone, but it's a lot better than it was. So it's not the end of the world, but you know, you just don't want like a huge line. Sometimes I've done it, and that's why you want to get a good quality masking as well, because some of them are really thin, so that makes a big difference actually to the masking. Now this one here, this little piece, I've cut out probably about sort of 5 to 10 minutes of me fiddling around trying to get that darn little piece to stay where it was meant to be, but we finally got there and managed to stamp it. And again, you know, a lot of this on the bottom one, it isn't going to show because it's on the stamp, on the masking, but it does still make a difference to add that in. And again, I'm just adding leaves here. This particular one at the top there that I'm just going over now actually has some flowers, but the others are just like additional leaves that you can kind of position wherever you want, just to add sort of interest, etc., and they kind of match with these florally bits. Now in the design that I was copying, in inverted commas, this was blue, but I decided to still go with the yellow, so and I decided to make it like a two-tone yellow. Now originally I was going on that side, but for some reason I changed my mind and went over to the top one. So I took the pale yellow, the buttercream, and I think it was warm sunshine, and what I've done, you can see there's a little bit of the warm sunshine just at the bottom, so just dabbing a little bit of that. Do the darker colour first. I know that sort of makes you think, oh well, I'm going to put some dark on the light, but it does help. Then when you put the light colour on the rest of it, it sort of blends that out and it looks like you haven't got any dark left, but actually you have. And if it's not strong enough, you can always go back in with a little bit of the dark. I would recommend at that point you just kind of dab the edge of the dark. Don't add any more pale, just dab it with a bit of tissue or something. But you can see just that small little extra effect is effective. And it's not difficult to do, and I think it just makes a difference to the dimension of the flower and just the whole card. It just adds that. Otherwise that particular flower, you've got all these lovely three-dimensional kind of leaves and flower, and then you've got kind of that one that was flat. Now I wanted this lovely sentiment. This was a different stamp set from Altenew, and I often see that people do black for sentiments, but personally I like to try and bring in the colours that we're using in the card itself. Now this is a very dark green, but it still is green, so you're still going to get the effect of it being nice and strong so it can be read. And you can see I'm not pressing super hard. You don't want to press too hard on a sentiment, but you can also see I'm giving it just a few minutes to allow that ink just to do its thing, just to absorb into the paper. But if you press really hard on a very fine written stamp like this, what you get is like a smudgy look. So you want to be very careful and just sort of press it enough to get it stamped, but not so hard to squish it down and actually make that line fat and not what it's meant to be like. So then we've removed the masks, and you can see here the sentiment doesn't look green, but actually in life it is quite green, but it's still strong. And at this point it was when I realized that I had just gone wrong. I mean, you can see the design was just all over to the left hand side. Now I had a choice. I could have cut down and removed some of the card on the right and just made it a smaller card, but I decided, well, let's make it a me card rather than a copying of an Altenew card. So I decided to let's balance things out and just go with the flow here. So I'm not showing you quite in the same speed as I did before, but we're showing you the layering again. Bizarrely, I sort of whacked this one on much quicker, I guess because you're sort of more familiar with how the layer's working, and it actually turned out a lot better. It lined up a lot nicer, this last one particularly. But again, I don't think it matters anyway. I mean, if you have a look, it doesn't look a lot different. But I then thought, well, it still needed a little bit down the bottom in that sort of edge there where it was empty, and I didn't like it. So I liked the flower at the top there. And then I popped those onto the platform so they were in position, and then I was fiddling around. This is the green for those yellow kind of flowers that we did the two-tone, and I'm just spending some time fiddling around trying to make them fit, and it just didn't really fit in this section quite where I wanted it to go. Eventually I got there, but it did take some time just to get it where I wanted. So then I just used that paler green that we were using for the first layer and put that down. So we've got the little leaves at the bottom on the right, and then we've got that other one there, the third flower as it were, coming up and out of those flowers. So it's just bringing balance, and again I just added a two-tone yellow flower obviously to that one at the top there, and then it's just balancing that all up so we've got sort of in all the different corners, and it's just kind of much more evenly done and not all over to one side. But obviously the problem is if you're not careful, because we added quite a strong tulip over to the right, now we needed to balance it back up over on the left as well. So it's just making sure things work, but it just proves that you can not only correct something, but you can actually, I think it looked better for it. Now I just took that leaf pattern thing that had the flowers on it to make a stalk for my tulip, because obviously otherwise it was just kind of floating in midair, and I therefore just I covered it with the masking, but I also just added a small amount of ink just at the bottom, and I feel like that just added all the balance. I really liked the finished look, actually better than how it was. I then took these beautiful yellow sort of mixed sparkly sequins and literally just took some of this construction glue. I had been using some white glue, but I found sometimes that's not being strong enough and they come off, whereas this construction glue, it's totally clear, and it, well, so's the white glue once it dries, but it seems to really hold them firm even if you like knock them. So I felt that that's been a better use of it. So for the inside, I just felt it was just a little bit boring, but I didn't want to go too crazy. So I just found this beautiful, very delicate lemon piece of vellum. Lemon vellum. Oh, I'm so poetic today. And I just cut it to size. I put some adhesive, just some tape, and you always want with your inserts to put your adhesive on the leading edge, so on the edge of the front of the card, so as you open the card it pulls open your insert. Otherwise, if you put it on the back edge, as you open the card, the insert stays closed. You don't want to do it on both sides, because as you open it, it just doesn't open up nicely. And that's it. That's the finished card, and I think it turned out really, really nicely. I was really pleased in the end. It took a lot longer than it appeared here, because there was a lot of fiddling around just getting the layers in position. I found using like that little pokey tool quite helpful, because it kind of sticks to your finger like static. It's really weird. So I found that helpful. So don't sort of get sort of too hung up if it seems to take a long time. It can do that, but as you saw with the second tulip, it was a lot faster because I understood what the layers were and what I was trying to achieve with them, so that was a lot quicker. So I think you'll find each time you use it, you've understood it a bit better and you're a lot quicker with it. And I really liked those two-tone flowers as well. Anyhow, so that is the card for today, and that is the last card for this year. So I hope you've enjoyed, and I would like to say thank you so much for all your patience, love and support this year. I've really appreciated it, and I hope you all have a wonderful, happy holidays and New Year, and I will see you again on the 28th of January. Thanks again, and bye for now. Bye.